Oh, it's nice to have the team for the filming, it's really great. So hello there, and I want to introduce you to Leon. Leon is actually currently training in the USR training program, and we've reached the final day, the Sunday afternoon. And I'd like to introduce Leon to you because he's joining the team of people that are going to be practicing soul retrieval and all the other shamanic practices that we do. And he will, in due course, go through his accreditation process and go onto the Universal Shamanic Alliance website. So hello there, Leon, and thank you for agreeing to be filmed.
And thank you for having me.
It's been a really good training. One thing I'd like the viewers to know is that working with Leon this weekend has enabled the training to go forward in leaps and bounds, and the result is it's a lot more efficient and we're getting a lot further, a lot faster, which is something that always gratifies me. So I'd be interested to hear anything you'd like to share about your experiences.
Probably the initial thing is arriving here with a great deal of interest, but not entirely sure that I could do it.
Yes.
And my rational mind just kept coming back, trying to interject itself, really. But I've been surprised at how quickly I could actually take on and learn and journey and actually do something.
Yes.
It was quite gratifying to me.
Yes.
And how quickly I took to it.
Yeah, it's always good when that happens. Yeah. And so something that particularly interested me as the training went on is it became clear to me that because of your background and experience, there are going to be certain clients that you're going to be very, very well equipped to work with, far better equipped than I am. And what I discover, generally speaking, is every shaman tends to, because of their own background, find they are able particularly to work with certain kinds of clients. So anything you'd like to share about that, I'd be interested to hear.
Yes, I'm quite open about the fact that I'm a recovering alcoholic and as well as an addict. And so I work with many other alcoholics and addicts as well. And going through a process, which we call the 12-step process,
Yes.
it involves many of the exact same things as shamanism does. And yet it appears that shamanism can do the same steps in a much shorter amount of time, because it goes back to the root of the problem and deals with that. And so I can see already there's a number of my friends that I have, that I'm working with, that could greatly benefit from this. And there's a fair number of them that are also very interested in it.
Yes.
So I think I've got quite a bit of work that I can be doing, and it'll just be interesting to see what happens.
It most certainly will, yes. Yes, the idea of the link between the 12-step process and shamanism, that's fascinating to me. I'm always interested in links between the way shamanism delivers and any other practice operates. And it's good to know it's more efficient. That's very helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of some of the very quick links. And one of the major helps in recovery is acknowledging that you can't do it on your own. It has to be done through some power outside of yourself.
Ah, through a power outside, yes.
Power outside of yourself, because of our own power, we basically come to the point that we did.
Yes.
And it's usually a place of actual desperation. And that's the only point at which you can really let your ego go and accept outside power.
Yes.
And we go through a series of, over a period of time, quite a few steps that involves getting rid of past fears and resentments and all the rest of it. But it's something that I think that shamanism goes to the heart of when it deals with the actual soul bits that have sheared off. And those are healed and brought back to the person. It often puts the person in a place of wholeness in which the addictions can then take care of themselves.
Yes.
In a much greater way.
Something for me that's been a real eye-opener is to understand how the journey into alcohol, although a very challenging and unpleasant experience, in so many ways actually has its own gifts. And you explained to me the idea that the ego actually reaches a point where it simply has to surrender to the higher power. That was revelatory for me to understand that.
Yeah, I believe that most of us in society, we live in a dream world that's given to us by our society. And we just accept its values and its assumptions about reality altogether. And it's not until something drastic comes that shocks us out of that. Because everything seems normal. We're in control of everything. And now I can say that being an alcoholic was actually one of the best things that's ever happened to me, in that it brought me to a place where I had to look for something outside of myself. And, you know, so in that sense it was a great gift to me. And it made me actually look at the whole process of journeying started from that, when I went into an alcohol program.
Yes.
Alcohol recovery program.
And you've touched on something really key to me, which is when you reach the point in your life when you can celebrate what used to be called a problem. So for my own example, it was having this debilitating illness called ME, which affected my memory and concentration, physical ability to function at all. And it was the moment as I realised that this illness actually is a shamanic illness, and it's actually my liberation path. That was a great moment too, so I can really resonate with what you're saying there, when you get that moment of understanding that what seems like the challenge or the problem is actually the solution and the opportunity. It's really great.
And my alcoholism, as well as my other addictions, made me realize I was forced to literally step outside of myself.
Yes.
And look for something in the wider world.
Yes.
You know? And so that's what led me on this path of discovery.
Yes.
And having recovered from the desire to drink, it really set me on the path to come into contact with shamanism, which is really doing much of the same things, but as I mentioned earlier, in a much quicker time.
Yes.
Because it tends to go to the root of the problems. Looking outside of what people that deal with alcoholics and addicts in a conventional way, it goes outside of that, it goes beyond that.
Yes.
And it deals with much more fundamental issues, such as soul loss.
Yes.
And curses.
Indeed.
And negative energies that we all have.
Yes.
Most of us accumulate throughout life. Now, I would never have looked at anything like that unless I was at a place of desperation, looking for something. And all I could say is that it works. Absolutely works.
Yeah.
And so if it works, you know, there's no point arguing with it.
That's great. I'd like to ask you a little bit about your experience with the plant strip medicine and the black, because there was some connection with that work and with the training that you're going through now.
Yes, my first experience with the plant medicine was with the black. And initially it appeared as if there was nothing happening.
Yes.
And yet, as a result of it, the next day I came into contact with trees and nature that began speaking to me amazingly. Completely shocked me.
Yes.
And it was only later that I became aware of, and possibly through yourself, mentioning the fact that, well, the black has been at work.
Yes.
And that evening again, although we used some other plant medicine as well, I went back to the black.
Yes.
And at that point I started to have some radical healing take place. And it's just as if the black came along as a guide and started healing, literal healing, in a matter of minutes, in which issues that I've had my whole life and never thought would be resolved were resolved in a matter of minutes.
Yes.
Actually. And since that time I've always had an affinity for the black medicine.
Yes.
And it always seemed to me that when I took it, she was telling me, I'm here as your instructor.
That was your keyword, instructor. I remember that so well.
I'm here to instruct.
Yes.
And there was never any pressure. I was free to not take any advice whatsoever.
Yes.
But it seemed a bit hypocritical to be asking for help and then rejecting it when she gave it. So I just relented and I would let go. And she worked. Absolutely. Yeah. And now coming back for this shamanic training, traveling to my safe place and looking for a spirit guide, the first guide that appeared was Black Panther. And since that time, I've discovered that it's actually the Mother Black.
Yes.
And she took on an appearance of the Black Panther as a way of simply communicating as something I could recognize.
Yeah.
And so it seems like my relationship to the black is an ongoing relationship as my guide.
Indeed so. So we both share the same guide in this respect. And it's fascinating to me that she appears to us in different guise, and that's absolutely fine, and yet nonetheless the strength of the guide is recognised by us both.
Yes.
Well, I'd like to thank you very much indeed, Leon, for agreeing to appear on UT Shaman. And it's good to know that within the short space of time, Leon will go through his accreditation process, which will then end up as another shaman available for people to contact on the Universal Shamanic Alliance website. So thanks for your time, and I'll speak to you all again soon. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.